Recently, this comic has made the rounds on the internet again, and has left many people disturbed even though they can't explain why. It shows a time traveller arriving in the far future, only to find that humanity has locked itself away in machines that hack the brain and give them complete, unending bliss forever and ever. Why is this bad? Why does this seem like a bad ending for the human race? It's commonly accepted that the whole point of life is to enjoy it as much as possible, the utilitarian argument. Though if we achieve a point where life is nothing but enjoyment, this feels wrong to us. In the world of this comic, there is no need for hobbies, art, music, family, friendships, or any of the other activities at all. The results are the same. We obtain the happiness chemicals of dopamine and serotonin, but instantly, forever, and with zero effort. You may find a world without aesthetic beauty to be horrifying, but ultimately, beauty is just a visual input that produces serotonin in the brain. Both of these activities can do that, but one of them faster and in bigger quantities. If you believe in maximizing your own happiness, you would agree to give up your entire life and step into the pleasure cube, because it will guarantee that you will be more happy forever. But would you? Why not? Philosopher John Stuart Mill separated pleasure into two orders: higher pleasures, things like opera, painting, literature, and lower pleasures, alcohol, sex, food. Both of these sets of activities produce serotonin, and one of them more than the other. So why doesn't everyone just get drunk constantly, eat rubbish all the time, and jack off all day? They both produce the same type of chemical at the end of the day. Scientifically, there is no boundary. So to prove that this boundary existed, Mill pointed out that if you ask someone who has experienced both sets of pleasure which one is the best, they'll usually say the higher pleasures, something that is more effort for less reward. Mill suggested that it would be better to be an unhappy human than a happy pig. But obviously, if a supermodel knocks on your door begging you to sleep with her, then it's time to put down the classical literature. That's fine. This doesn't make much sense if we believe that the purpose of life is to maximize happiness. Something else must be at play here if we're so apprehensive to step into the pleasure cube. In his book Anarchy, State and Utopia, Robert Nozick describes a similar concept of a machine that allows the user to escape into a perfect simulated world. He suggests 3 reasons as to why people would mostly not want to plug into this machine. Firstly, we want to do certain things, not just have the experience of doing them. When people climb a mountain, they don't do it just to see the view at the top. The preparation, journey and experience that comes with it is more important to them than the end. I didn't make this video just because I want people to watch it. As nice as that is, I also enjoy the problem solving involved with editing a video. If I had a robot who made my videos for me in a way that was indistinguishable from videos that I made, then the views and lovely comments would mean nothing to me. In April 2020, a man in England climbed his staircase over 3,000 times to simulate climbing the height of Mount Everest. And while he technically has the experience and health benefits of climbing 8,848 meters on a steep incline, you can't tell me that this is as good as climbing Mount Everest for real. Of course, this is different to a hyper-realistic simulation where you can do whatever you want, but it demonstrates that doing things is not the same as having the experience of doing them. Secondly, we want to be a certain sort of person. In the cube, you are nobody to anybody. You have no personality, no sense of humour, no interests, you don't love, you don't hate, you aren't anything. Maybe if we could see the sort of simulations you run, we could get some understanding, but people's actions in a video game rarely reflect what they are like in real life. If the pleasure cube isn't a simulation and it's just eternal bliss, then by all metrics you become a vegetable. And how many people watching would want to become a vegetable? If you could upgrade the pleasure cube to be a transformation cube, which allows you to be anyone you want, I imagine most people wouldn't want to tune into that either. If you could be anyone, If you could be a super handsome muscular firefighter who has saved an infinite number of people from a burning building, if you could simply be a grandmaster who could beat anyone at chess, then what is there left to do? For this reason, some theologists place God outside the realm of time, because otherwise, how did he spend the infinite number of days before he created the universe if he could be anyone or do anything? How would he fill the days? In short, God, these kids outside my window are just making so much noise. In short, who we are is just as important to a human as how we spend our time, and we spend our time working towards becoming someone we want to be. Thirdly, it limits us to a man-made reality. Assuming the pleasure cube is a simulation of a utopian world and not just unconscious happiness, then the only limit to this world is the creator's imagination. In theory, this could mean that you can do whatever you like, but realistically, you can only design this world based on things you've already seen. Suppose one day, the people outside the pleasure cube discover a new spectrum of colours, and it unleashes a new golden age of paintings and design and beauty all across the world. Try as you might, you will never be able to design that from within the simulation. Still think stacking blocks would be better? If the person you want to be is someone who changes the world for the better, and the thing you want to experience is to do that, then no matter how many trees you plant or diseases you cure, they will never actually impact the real world. You will only think that you've done them. For religious viewers, there is also the argument that it cuts the user off from a deeper spiritual connection with the universe. There's no God in a Minecraft church. While not the same thing as a pleasure cube, English writer Aldous Huxley wrote in his novel Brave New World about a hypothetical future of humanity, with a similar premise to Nozick's simulation. In a post-nation world, a group of bureaucrats called the World Controllers operate a society where people are born in test tubes and can live a life of complete pleasure with minimal work. Group sex, unlimited entertainment, no illnesses, and if you're feeling especially bored or unhappy, you can take some free drugs in pill form to mellow you out. Even the slave class of the intellectually stunted have had their brain chemistry rewired to intensely enjoy the menial tasks that keep society running for everyone else. It's a hedonist's dream, and it should be the end goal if we think maximizing happiness is the only thing worth obtaining. I think it's easier for us to explain why Brave New World is a dystopia than it is to explain the pleasure cube, and many of the criticisms of Brave New World's New World applies over to the cube too. Although the utilitarian position ranks happiness as the most important value, this doesn't mean that it overrules all other human values, like love, identity, and freedom. When the book's protagonist Bernard falls in love with his co-worker Lenina, they have to stop seeing each other completely because monogamous relationships are considered selfish. Families and having natural children are outlawed, while dating is reduced to a fancy dinner followed by a one-night stand. While love and pleasure are similar in terms of neuroscience, they are not the same. And so this society limits the complete spectrum of positive human emotions. Meanwhile, the agency and freedom of the world's citizens is stripped away. They cannot decide what they do with their lives because they are conditioned from birth to only seek pleasure and remove pain with drugs the moment unhappiness arises. Thinking philosophically and rationally is a threat to the stability of society, and so nonconformists are banished to a remote island. Artistic works as well are hard to create, as one character finds out when he has no stories to write about because nearly all stories require conflict and struggle. There is no right to be unhappy. The world controllers assume that all pleasure is good and all pain is bad, when there are many real-world examples where the inverse is true. Exercising or dental work is painful, but it's a good thing. Just like drugs and fast food are enjoyable but bad things. Surely you should be allowed to choose what kind of good and what kind of bad that you consume or engage with. These are quite similar to the issues that arise with the pleasure cube. The cube abolishes all other values that we hold dear in favour of the most important one. It strips away our freedom to do what we want because we are trapped as a vegetable until someone unplugs us. There's no going back. With no conflict or hard work, you will never be able to produce higher pleasures, and if you rig the pleasure machine to allow you strife and unhappiness to let you obtain this goal, then what was the point of the pleasure machine? Well done, you've trapped yourself in VR chat.
You don't know the way.
Yes, I do.
Do you know the way?
I know the way.
You have to have Ebola to know the way.
In his final book, entitled Island, Huxley outlined his personal view of a real utopia, in contrast to the fake utopia of Brave New World. A world somewhere in between mindless euphoria and primitive unhappiness. On the island of Pala lives a race of largely uncontacted natives. In the 19th century, a Scottish medical doctor discovered the island and brought with him many Western political and scientific ideas. They adopted these ideas, and as a result their society is decentralized and based on the principles of Henry George and Kropotkin. Modernization is selectively used by the Palanese, making it a hybrid of the modern world with all of our creature comforts and primitive tribal society. Most importantly, for the Palanese, the search for happiness is superseded by one thing only: the search to understand the universe and humanity's cosmic purpose. Instead of asking, how does this make the most people happy, citizens ask, how does this advance the spiritual goal for the most people? Science and technology are seen as an intrinsic part of the universe to help humans understand their place in it, not tools invented by man to do as he pleases with. Drugs are treated as part of this cosmic toolkit. They are used to understand consciousness and improve social bonding, not pacification and euphoria like in Brave New World. For Huxley, simply giving up and living in constant bliss is a coward's way out. There's a whole universe out there, and it just doesn't seem right to believe that the only thing worth doing is sitting in a box producing a nice chemical in your head. So what's the point of all this? Why discuss the ethics involved with a hypothetical eternal happiness machine? Well, it looks like the invention of a pleasure cube, or something like it, might not be as far away as you'd think. In his book Homo Deus, Yuval Noah Harari presents a similar two-stage concept of pleasure as Mill did. There's pleasure, sex, drugs, skydiving, whatever, and freedom from pain, which I imagine is similar to sitting at home with a nice cup of tea and a good movie on. It's not exhilarating, it's not a swashbuckling adventure, it's just nice. The key to happiness is neither the race nor the gold medal, but rather combining the right doses of excitement and tranquility. But Harari also points out that no matter what monks in their Himalayan caves or philosophers in their ivory towers say, for the capitalist juggernaut, happiness is pleasure. Period. It's a lot easier to convince people that they want this instead of this. Harari predicts that over the course of the 21st century, something similar to the pleasure cube might be invented. At the very least, we could hack our brains to give us dopamine whenever we want. In 2015, scientists in Israel successfully treated a person's depression instantly and indefinitely by implanting a small chip into his brain that regulated dopamine levels. When he complained a few months later that his depression returned, doctors found that the battery in the chip had simply run out, and a new one was put in, which again cured his depression. The US military too are working on hacking the human brain's attention and enjoyment functions. In 2011, New Scientist writer Sally Adee entered a VR simulation used by the army to simulate a realistic battlefield. She did terribly, until she was hooked up to a device that artificially stimulated her focus and attention. This time around, she not only killed the enemies quicker and with more ease, but she ended up enjoying it, and when the simulation was over, she didn't believe it had already been 20 minutes. It seems like the pleasure cube is coming soon, and we can't really be sure what the reaction will be. Will people take to it? Or will people treat it like a drug and stay away? Returning to the original comic, many people agreed that on face value the argument put forward made sense, which is why it's so disturbing. I worry that if the cube is invented, some people might plug in, even if they don't want to, because they think it's logically the right thing to do. Hopefully this video could explain why it's a bad idea to enter the cube. And if you're watching this in the far future with your cube invitation right there in your hand, I strongly advise you to do the right thing, the human thing, and just play Roblox or Minecraft instead. They're just as good.